Walk into the produce section of any modern American grocery store. Look at the displays. Apples stacked in flawless geometric pyramids. Bell peppers with skin like polished glass. Tomatoes without a single blemish, bruise, or scar. It is a masterpiece of visual engineering. It is also a museum of biological atrophy. To understand the invisible crisis in the modern food supply, you must understand the mechanical laws of biological resistance. Think of a human astronaut orbiting the Earth inside the International Space Station. For months, that astronaut lives in an environment entirely devoid of physical resistance. There is no gravity pushing down on their skeletal structure. There is no weight requiring muscular exertion. The environment is strictly controlled, and the biological result is catastrophic decay. Without the constant heavy resistance of gravity, the human body mathematically recalculates its energy expenditure. It determines that maintaining dense bone architecture and dense muscle tissue is a waste of biological resources. The bones become brittle, the muscles shrink. The astronaut returns to Earth visually large, if they consumed enough calories, but structurally weak. We have applied an identical procedure to the American food supply. We have placed our agricultural system inside a zero-gravity isolation chamber. For millions of years, a plant growing in the wild was locked in a perpetual state of physical and biological war. A wild plant is anchored to the ground. It cannot run away from a predator. It cannot seek shelter from extreme weather. When a swarm of insects begins chewing on its leaves, when ultraviolet radiation beats down on its cellular tissue, or when a fungal pathogen attempts to penetrate its root system, the plant experiences extreme environmental trauma. This trauma is the biological equivalent of gravity. It is the heavy physical resistance that forces the plant to adapt, to fortify, and to survive. But a century ago, the industrial agricultural sector looked at this biological war and saw only financial loss. Insects eat profit margins. Fungal infections create cosmetic scars that centralized supermarket chains refuse to buy. So, the industry systematically eradicated the resistance. They did not build physical walls. They built a chemical force field. They engineered synthetic herbicides to eliminate all botanical competition, ensuring the commercial crop never has to fight for water or root space. They deployed synthetic pesticides, blanketing the fields in a neurotoxic umbrella that instantly kills any insect attempting to take a single bite of a leaf. They sprayed industrial fungicides to sterilize the soil surface, ensuring no microscopic pathogen ever challenges the plant's immune system. The modern crop lives in uninterrupted luxury. It faces zero biological resistance. It never experiences a single day of trauma. The cosmetic results are flawless. The harvest weights break historical records. But inside the cellular tissue of the plant, the biological atrophy is profound. Just like the astronaut in zero gravity, the modern crop mathematically recalculates its energy expenditure. Because the synthetic chemical umbrella is doing all the defending, the plant's internal immune system shuts down. It stops manufacturing the complex chemical armor required for survival. It becomes a hollow vessel, swollen with water and simple sugars, completely devoid of structural density. We are harvesting unblemished produce that is biologically bankrupt. To understand what this zero-gravity environment is stealing from your body, you have to examine the precise chemical weapons that a plant manufactures when it is actively fighting for its life. When you walk down the supplement aisle of a high-end pharmacy, you are surrounded by multi-million-dollar marketing campaigns. You see glass bottles labeled with words like Times antioxidants, polyphenols, and Times superfoods. You are told these compounds will reduce cellular inflammation, protect your cardiovascular system, and significantly extend your lifespan. The marketing implies these chemicals are a generous gift from nature. They are not. Nature does not manufacture medicine for humans. Nature manufactures weapons for plants. In the field of botanical biochemistry, these highly prized compounds belong to a specific structural classification. They are called phytoalexins. The terminology is derived from Greek. Phyto times meaning plant, alexin times meaning to ward off, to repel, to defend. Phytoalexins are not primary nutrients. They are not carbohydrates, proteins, or fats designed to fuel cellular growth. They belong to a category known as secondary metabolites, and a plant only synthesizes secondary metabolites under absolute biological duress. Look at a grapevine growing in rocky, unforgiving soil. If a fungal pathogen lands on the surface of a grape leaf and attempts to penetrate the cellular wall, the plant's biological alarm system detonates. The cellular membrane detects the microscopic physical breach. Within minutes, the DNA of the plant mechanically redirects its energy. It stops growing larger. It reroutes its biological resources directly into a localized chemical munitions factory. The plant floods the infection site with a highly toxic chemical compound designed to physically dissolve the cell walls of the invading fungus. That chemical weapon is called resveratrol. It is the exact same compound the wellness industry sells you in a $50 bottle for heart health. Look at a wild blueberry bush. When it is subjected to intense, brutal ultraviolet radiation from the sun, the cellular DNA of the plant is in severe danger of mutating. To survive, the plant manufactures a dense, dark pigment to act as a physical radiation shield. It synthesizes a chemical sunblock to absorb the destructive light frequencies. That radiation shield is called an anthocyanin. Look at a wild cabbage or broccoli plant. When a caterpillar takes a physical bite out of a leaf, the mechanical crushing of the plant tissue breaks an internal cellular membrane. This physical breach allows two highly isolated compounds, a glucosinolate and an enzyme called myrosinase, to violently mix. The reaction generates a volatile, highly toxic sulfur bomb designed to paralyze the insect's digestive tract. That poison is called sulforaphane, resveratrol, anthocyanins, sulforaphane. The health industry calls them miracles of nutrition, but strictly speaking, they are combat trauma compounds. They are the chemical scars of an organism that was forced to fight for its life. This is the exact biological architecture that modern agriculture has destroyed. When a commercial crop is grown inside the zero-gravity isolation chamber of modern farming, there are no fungal invaders. There are no chewing insects. The chemical umbrella of the agrochemical cartel has neutralized all physical threats. Therefore, the plant's DNA never receives the biological signal to activate its munitions factory. It never produces resveratrol. It never synthesizes sulforaphane. It never builds an anthocyanin shield. The crop grows visually massive. It grows perfectly uniform, but it is entirely devoid of the defensive chemical weapons. The industry views this as a harmless byproduct of efficiency, but they are ignoring a critical, millions of years old biological contract between humans and plants, because human biology did not just evolve to tolerate those botanical poisons. We evolved to require them. To understand the catastrophic consequence of a chemically coddled food supply, you have to look at the cold, evolutionary math of human biology. The human body is an incredibly sophisticated survival engine, but it is blind. It cannot see the external environment. It is sealed inside a dark vault of skin and bone. To know whether it needs to prepare for a harsh winter, a famine, or an impending physical threat, the body requires external intelligence. It needs a biological scout to cross the perimeter and report back on the precise condition of the environment. That intelligence briefing arrives entirely through the digestive tract. When you consume a plant, you are not just acquiring calories. You are uploading environmental data. This biological mechanism is known in evolutionary biology as xenohormesis. Xeno times, meaning foreign. Hormesis, times meaning a beneficial biological response triggered by a low dose of stress. Xenohormesis is the biological contract. When a human being consumes a plant that has been severely stressed, a plant rich in phytoalexins, heavy with resveratrol or sulforaphane, those chemical weapons enter the human bloodstream. They are fundamentally toxic compounds, but the dose is low. It is a microscopic chemical assault. When human cells detect these foreign stress compounds circulating in the blood, an ancient, structural alarm system is tripped. The cells analyze the data. The logic is strictly mathematical. If the plants we are eating are currently fighting for their lives, the surrounding environment must be hostile. A biological threat is imminent. In response to this perceived threat, the human body aggressively upregulates its own internal defense systems. It activates specific longevity pathways, like the sirtuin genes. It begins aggressively hunting down and destroying senescent cells, the dead or mutating cells that lead to cancer. It floods the system with its own endogenous antioxidants to reduce systemic inflammation. It increases cellular repair protocols. The human body uses the chemical scars of the plant to calibrate its own immune system. But look at the mathematics of the modern grocery store. We are systematically feeding the American population an endless supply of plants grown in an absolute chemical vacuum. The produce is visually perfect, but it is biologically mute. When you consume a chemically protected, pesticide-drenched commercial tomato, you are uploading zero environmental intelligence. There are no phytoalexins in the tissue. There are no combat trauma compounds circulating in the blood. The human cellular alarm system is never tripped. The cells assume the environment is perfectly safe. They down-regulate the longevity pathways. They slow down cellular repair. They allow systemic inflammation to slowly accumulate. The immune system, lacking the necessary chemical intelligence to remain vigilant, slowly atrophies. We are not just eating empty calories. We are eating biological complacency. And the entity enforcing this biological complacency is not a malicious health conspiracy. It is a pure, amoral economic equation. It is the centralized grocery cartel and their absolute unyielding demand for cosmetic perfection. The centralized grocery cartel, the massive, consolidated network of national supermarket chains, does not evaluate produce based on nutritional density. They do not test for phytoalexins. They do not measure the xenohormetic data inside a leaf. Their entire procurement algorithm is built on a single ruthless metric: physical uniformity. This is not an aesthetic preference. It is an economic requirement. When you are managing a logistics network that moves billions of pounds of perishable biomass across a 3,000-mile continental supply chain, you cannot accommodate biological variation. You need standardized geometric units. You need apples that fit perfectly into automated sorting trays. You need bell peppers with structurally rigid cell walls that will not crush under their own weight during a 3-day transit in a refrigerated diesel trailer. Above all, you need a product that will not trigger a primal psychological rejection by the consumer. The cartel has mathematically calculated that the modern consumer, conditioned by decades of marketing, views a physical blemish not as evidence of a biological struggle, but as evidence of decay. A rust spot on an apple, a scar on a tomato skin, a slightly asymmetrical shape, these are strictly categorized by corporate buyers as shrink. They represent unsellable inventory. A single pallet of slightly bruised produce rejected at the loading dock equates to thousands of dollars in lost margin. To completely eliminate this financial risk, the grocery cartel enforces draconian aesthetic mandates on the commercial farmer. These mandates are legally binding. If a farmer attempts to grow a crop without an industrial chemical umbrella, if they allow their fields to experience a minor, controlled insect attack or a slight fungal stress to trigger the plant's biological alarm system, the resulting crop will inevitably bear the physical scars of that war. The produce will contain massive levels of medicinal phytoalexins. It will be profoundly dense in human nutrition. And the grocery cartel will instantly reject the entire harvest at the warehouse door. The farmer will face total financial ruin. Therefore, the commercial farmer is structurally locked into a system of chemical sterilization. They are financially forced to purchase the exact neurotoxins and synthetic fungicides required to eradicate all biological stress from the field. The farmer knows the chemicals are obliterating the plant's internal defense systems. They know they are producing hollow, medically useless calories. But the math demands a cosmetically flawless product. This is the cosmetic deception of the American supermarket. The visual perfection you see under the fluorescent lights is the exact physical proof of the plant's biological bankruptcy. We have engineered an agricultural supply chain that equates cosmetic beauty with nutritional value, when biologically, the exact opposite is true. You cannot alter this macroeconomic equation. The supply chain is too rigid. The centralized buyers will never accept a bruised, structurally dense harvest. But the rules of the grocery cartel do not apply to your backyard. You hold absolute jurisdiction over the dirt on your property. And if you understand the mechanical laws of biological trauma, you can intentionally reprogram your own food supply to manufacture the exact chemical weapons the system has suppressed. To extract real, functional medicine from your garden, you must radically alter your psychological approach to plant care. You must stop acting like a synthetic chemical umbrella. You must become the architect of controlled trauma. In commercial agriculture, this is mathematically forbidden. In your backyard, It is the exact physical protocol required to command a plant to manufacture phytoalexins. You have to intentionally inflict measured, non-lethal stress to wake up the biological immune system. Step 1. Initiate deficit irrigation. Most home gardeners drown their plants. They water on a rigid daily schedule, keeping the topsoil permanently saturated. This creates a lazy, highly localized root system. The plant never experiences drought panic, so it never fortifies its cellular walls. Stop watering on a schedule. Wait until the plant physically droops. Wait until the leaves begin to flag in the midday sun. When you force a plant to experience acute dehydration, a biological alarm trips. The roots physically panic. They drive violently downward, pushing past the comfortable topsoil, diving deep into the heavy subsoil to hunt for moisture. Down there, they strike bedrock. They encounter trapped trace minerals, iron, zinc, magnesium. They pull those dense minerals directly up into the structural tissue of the fruit. Simultaneously, the drought stress signals the plant's DNA to flood its cells with antioxidants to prevent total desiccation. You are mathematically trading water weight for biological density. Step 2. Allow mechanical damage. When you see a caterpillar chewing on a kale or cabbage leaf, your immediate instinct is to intervene. You want to spray a pesticide, even an organic one, to protect the visual aesthetic of the plant. Do not touch it. Step back. Let the insect bite. That physical breach of the cellular wall is the exact mechanical switch that forces the plant to manufacture sulforaphane. If you neutralize the insect before it inflicts damage, you permanently turn off the chemical munitions factory. You must mentally accept a 10 to 15% threshold of biological damage. You want holes in the leaves. You want structural scars. Those scars are the strict, physical proof that the plant is actively synthesizing human medicine. Step 3. Inflict deliberate physical trauma. If you are growing tomatoes or peppers, do not let them grow wild and undisturbed. Walk out into the garden and physically snap off the lower branches. Break them with your bare hands. This is not just for airflow. When you physically break a living branch, you inflict an open wound on the main stalk. The plant instantly registers the trauma. To prevent a microscopic fungal infection from entering that open wound, the plant aggressively floods the stalk with resveratrol and localized immune compounds. The entire biological architecture of the plant goes on high alert. The main stem physically thickens to brace against future trauma. The defensive chemicals eventually migrate upward, directly into the fruit. You are systematically training the biology of your food. The produce you harvest from this protocol will not win a ribbon at a county fair. It will not look like the flawless geometric glass in the supermarket. It will be smaller. It will be incredibly dense. The skins will be thick, asymmetrical, and heavily scarred. It will look exactly like it survived a brutal biological war. Because it did. And when you consume that scarred, battle-tested fruit, you are not just eating empty calories. You are uploading hard, environmental intelligence directly into your own bloodstream. You are handing your cellular immune system the exact chemical data it needs to activate its ancient longevity pathways. You have bypassed the cosmetic deception of the grocery cartel. You are using the physical trauma of the dirt to build the structural resilience of your own biology.